Hello, hello. Good morning, beautiful people. Happy Sunday. It is so very good to be here with each and every one of you as we take this time to intentionally gather and to intentionally remember who and whose we are, to celebrate the magnificence and significance of God in, through, and as us. This morning, we will begin as we always do with prayer, and our prayer champion, Reverend Shauna, will lead us in prayer.
Good morning, beautiful people. Happy Sunday. Let's close our eyes and relax. Let's breathe in love and breathe out compassion. Let's experience the palpable love of God right here in this gathering, right here and right now. I recognize the truth of what this thing I call God is. God is infinite supply. It is all love and compassion. It is all peace and harmony. It knows no obstacles. It is everywhere present. It is all knowing and all knowledge. It is beyond words and thoughts. There is only God and only good. It is within us, above us, around us, under us. It lives in you and it lives in me. There is no separation in God. We are one with God. Namaste. The divine in me bows to the divine in you. I see you as God sees you, perfect, whole, and complete, made in God's image and likeness. I know that God works through me. I am a loving, caring presence. I know that love is God made manifest and the strongest magnetic force in the universe. I know that when I send out real love always returns to me. As I am one with God, you are one with the love which belongs to you by divine right. When my eyes see a situation, a challenge, or an obstacle, I know it is illusory. I go deeper and experience the call for love in all situations. And as God works through me, it works through each one of you. You are imbued with divinity. You are imbued with unlimited love. You are imbued with unlimited possibilities. You are imbued with wisdom, and you are imbued with unbelievable power. With God, all things are possible. I recognize that we are one in spirit and all part of the God mind. Regardless of the 1% difference in our skin color, sexual orientation, age, or ability, we are 99% identical in our genetic makeup under our skin. And we share the stardust that comes from the cosmos with every other visible, invisible, animate, or inanimate thing. Today we rejoice because we are here. We rejoice because love is the way. We rejoice because we are in a loving community that expresses that love. We are reminded of this today through this prayer. We are reminded of this today through the meditation. We are reminded of this today through the music, and we are reminded of this today through the message. We rejoice because we are praying from the realm of the answer. We rejoice because we are working with the law of love. So I now release this word back into that divine law that already knows what to do and how to do it, and declare that it is already done. So it is with total joy, anticipation, and expectation that we now say, Amen, Ashe, and so it is.
Yes, yes, yes. Amen. Ashe, and so it is. Thank you, Reverend Shauna, for that prayer. We are locked in. We are ready. We are grounded. We are clear why we are here today, and we are clear why we continue to gather intentionally each and every Sunday. to speak the truth, to know the truth, to embody the truth in greater, deeper, and more powerful ways. Well, hello again, and good morning to each and every one of you. It is so very good to be here with all of you, and we especially would love to say hello to our first-time guests. If you are joining us for the very first time, streaming in for the very first time, connecting for the very first time, watching for the very first time, at whatever time it may be for you as you're watching this, we are so grateful that you chose to take the time to spend some time with us, to take the time to hang out with us and tap into this powerful vibration that is Celebration Spiritual Center. As a first-time guest, you see the information here on your screen. We would love to stay in touch with you, and so this information is how you get access to our digital connection card by texting the word welcome to 347-472-1078. You'll receive a link, and that link is the link to our digital connection card. Complete the information there, submit the information, and then you'll receive a follow-up text that says you're all set. And indeed, at that point you are. You will be on our mailing list. You'll receive our weekly email that goes out on Friday, and any other messages or correspondence that's necessary for our community. But as it stands right now, as you're here, as you're connected, you are now family, and we love and appreciate you, and we are confident that you will receive something today that will support you in having a more empowered week, that will support you in thriving this week, that will support you in remembering and knowing that you are worthy, that you are powerful beyond measure, and that God loves you always just as you are, because God is in you. So I think it's good to get into our announcements, and for our first-time guests, you'll see there's some things in our announcements that will also be in the weekly email, and so you may want some of those details, some of that information in your inbox. Every Wednesday morning, we gather together for prayer at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Momentum Prayer Call. The Momentum Prayer Call is a wonderful way to continue the momentum that begins on Sunday and carry that through the week. It's also a wonderful way to jumpstart the momentum if you feel that you've lost it on Monday or Tuesday. And it's also a wonderful way to stay grounded in your daily spiritual practice, your DSP, and continue to start the day in that way. So that you're grounded in truth. And so what do? We have a reading, and after sharing that reading, then we also pray. Either myself, PY, or one of our prayer champions lead us in prayer, and we go on about our day. It's a very quick call, but a very powerful call, and a very powerful intentional sort of seed for the day to set the tone for the day. So you see the information here on your screen. It's very easy to join us on Wednesday mornings. If you cannot make it at that time live, the most recent prayer is always recorded, so you can use the playback number and access that recording. Additionally, if you're on our mailing list, under the prayer support section, you will also see a link to actually listen to that prayer online. So that's another reason you may want to be on our mailing list. If you have a prayer request, you can send that prayer request to prayerchampions@celebrationsc.org. We are here as your pastors. We are here along with our prayer champions to hold the highest watch with and for you, for your family and friends, whatever may be going on in your life or someone that you care about. Feel free to send us a prayer request so that we can hold space with you and know that God is working in, through, and as all situations, and that victory is absolutely possible.
Yes, yes.
Summer vibes. We are continuing to love, and I'm going to rock mine hopefully soon. I guess it'll have to be in August. The new Amen Ashe, and so it is summer designs. These will only be available for the summer. So we're continuing to tell you about them because there may come a time in September where you're like, I would love one of those t-shirts. And it will not be available after August. So if you're interested in designs, grab them. We have some colorful summery designs. We have some pride designs, some designs for Juneteenth. And then, of course, all of the other wonderful merchandise that's available in our shop. There will be some additional discounts coming in the coming week. There will be a 20% discount coming that we'll tell you about next week. For those who are joining us for the first time this week, we are in our Masterclass series. This is something that we began in 2020, inspired to offer it in this way because of the pandemic and because we moved to virtual services. And so we're in the midst of studying The Power of Decision by Raymond Charles Barker. And it has been a powerful time. I guarantee, even if you're jumping in right now for the first time, you're going to get something powerful out of today's lesson. And then, of course, we encourage you to go back. You can go to the playlist on YouTube and start back at week 1. What we're also providing with this class are study resources and links to other resources. So you can go to celebrationsc.org/power to access those, or you can scan the QR code with your phone. You will see this information again throughout the stream. So if you don't catch it right now or didn't think you wanted it, you'll see the links again so that you can access it later. That concludes our announcements for this Sunday. And so now we get to move into the meditation experience, which will be led by our very own Pastor Yolanda.
I love this time in service. I love the opportunity to come together, to join in spirit, to join in power, and to decide that we want perfect peace. And knowing law and principle as we do, once we make the choice, it is done. I'm grateful to know that there is no external condition that cannot be soothed by perfect peace. I'm grateful to know that perfect peace never comes or goes. It is always there. And so if in our minds or experience there is upset, we judge ourselves not. We just know that we can return to perfect peace at any time. Perfect in its unfolding for every situation. Perfect because it completes the cycle of truth and beauty and ease. Perfect because it comes from the one mind that made it perfect. Perfect because we have access to peace whenever we choose. Perfect because unconditional love says that we are worthy of it. Let's practice perfect peace now. We talk about these principles and we teach these ideas and concepts, but if you have not felt God alive within you, for you, moving in through and as you, this is the time. We make time every Sunday to remember, to go within, and to allow the truth to permeate every cell of our being. And this month, you've heard me say it, today I choose to spend in perfect peace. I decide. I commit. I allow. So let's do that right now. Go ahead and look around the room. Notice where you are. It's always important to bring ourselves back to the present. For as our minds go to the past or to the future, we get in fear, doubt, and worry. But as we realize that we're right here, right now, we can close our eyes in complete certainty that within us is perfect peace. So let's do that now. Align the ears over the shoulders. And if you feel yourself leaning too far in or too far back, just settle into that place of complete alignment. Vertebra stacking on top of vertebra. Bring the palms to the tops of the thighs. As we know that we are safe, we can close our eyes. That subtle movement, that easy return to peace is given to us simply by closing the eyes. And as we relax the eyelids, we send the signal to our body. It can follow suit. And from this place of peace, let's just notice the breath that is always available to us. demonstrating the cycle of giving and receiving, demonstrating how easy the flow is. Let's take a few rounds of breath to just notice. It feels good to notice. And let's take conscious control of this breath and our ability to notice and send them both into the low belly. Together, inhale for a count of 4. Hold it there, count of 4. And now relax the jaw and release the breath. Sigh it out. Let's repeat that breath cycle in through the low belly, count of 4. Hold it there, count of 4. And releasing it. In through the low belly now and up through the rib cage, extending the reach of breath, the healing possibility of breath. Hold it there. And sigh it out. In through the low belly, up through the rib cage. Feel the expansion across the sides and the front and the back of this beautiful vessel. Hold it there. Without collapsing, release the breath. There's beautiful silence on the end of the release. And let's draw the breath in and up through the heart now. Hold it there. Maybe you feel the heart beating. And release the breath now. We make room for more breath and more peace in through the low belly, up through the rib cage. Now, making its way again through and to the heart. Maybe you send it into a deeper place. Hold it there. And because we choose to release the breath, we can return to perfect peace now. Let's practice that deep breath in through the low belly, up through the rib cage, up through the heart. Now this time, close the lips, exhale through the nose. The same power of breath, the same sensation that creates the waves on the ocean, that same ability to feel. Take a few rounds to let it move through you, to let it promote even more peace within you. Because today we have decided that perfect peace is ours. Beautiful, everyone. Now, together, let's send that peace into our feet. Maybe they've been walking on the earth this week, and maybe you've been gripping a little too tight to your experiences or challenges. We send breath into the feet. Relax the feet. Energy flows up through the soles of the feet, across the ankles. Relax the ankles, nothing to grip onto. just peace to float on. Energy flows across the shins and the calves. No tension there. We choose peace. Relax the shins and the calves. Energy flows across the knees. They bend, for we are flexible in our experience of life. For we know that we are the choosers, and today we decide for peace. Relax the knees. Energy flows across the thighs, the hamstrings, the glutes. Give yourself permission to experience peace there as well. Relax the thighs, the hamstrings, and the glutes. Unobstructed energy wants to flow. Unobstructed peace wants to be experienced. Letting that energy move in and up. Exhale and release. In and up. Exhale and release. In and up. Exhale and release. We make room for more peace to flow up, up, up and out, the crown of our head. For we block it not, we allow it all. We allow peace to flow back down through the crown, across the third eye, balancing, opening, down the throat, across the shoulders, down the arms, and out the fingertips. Go ahead and scan your body. Notice anywhere that seems tight. Can you relax behind the eyes a little more? Can you relax the hands a little more? Can you allow peace to calm the mind? From this place of awareness, you may turn the palms up to receive or down to ground. But as we move into our silent time, I will monitor. You just take that inward journey. And if the mind wanders, it is okay. When you become aware, lovingly, gently, affirm the truth. Today, I choose to spend in perfect peace. And as you have chosen, it is so now. With our eyes still closed, we notice the time we've given ourselves. While it feels brief, the vibration and the alignment of our cells is eternal. We allow peace to permeate every cell. And with our eyes closed, we take this mental picture of how good it feels to be reacquainted with ourselves, to be reconnected to ourselves, to know that God is alive and well within us. We bring all of this energy back with us. For any time this week that we feel drawn to the external, any time this week we feel that we are in worry, doubt, or fear, we just become aware and we choose peace. Simply closing the eyes, the body knows where to go. You follow it back home to perfect peace. Let's bring that with us now as we begin to wake our bodies nice and easy, very gently. Maybe you wiggle the fingers and the toes. Subtle movement is all the body needs to respond. Stop the movement. If the palms were turned up or open palmed, we turn them back down, reconnecting. Maybe we rub the tops of the thighs, making contact there. Stop the movement. Inhale, draw the shoulders up by the ears. Exhale as the shoulders release back and down. Inhale up. Exhale, shoulders release back and down. Last time. Inhale up. Exhale, shoulders release back and down. Bring palms together at heart center. Bow chin to fingertips. And just pause to notice how the breath flows across the fingers and how breath has been activated this whole time. Slowly flutter the eyes open. Nice soft gaze. Don't lose that soft place at the back of the eyes. Inhale, raise the chin. Raise the gaze. Exhale. Namaste.
Yes, yes, yes. Namaste. Thank you, PY.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, we are in class mode, and we're going to continue with the chapter, Decide to Be Creative. As you see, and we'll see on your screen, if you have class questions as you're reading the chapter, you can send those questions to truthsunday@celebrationsc.org. We incorporate those questions as we receive them into the class. Additionally, as I shared earlier, you see the QR code and the link there for the study resources. You can grab those, and I get this information will show up again. So you can grab that information. We have the spiritual mind treatments that are in each chapter. We've pulled those out, so you can print them out, post them somewhere, keep them somewhere where you can read them, keep them somewhere convenient. We have sermons and sermon series that are related to the things that we're studying, and other helpful links as they come up. Excuse me. So let's get into the chapter, picking up where we left off last week and continuing with the wisdom and the power of decision, and understanding what it means to be a creative being, and that we all are creative, and how do we tap into and allow the creativity of God to flow in, through, and as us.
I hope that as we read this, we realize, like as PG just said, that we are all creative.
Yes,
we sometimes limit that to the people that we see expressing creativity in certain ways. And because we ourselves don't express it that way, we think we're not creative, or we've been told that we're not creative. Or maybe we were very creative in certain ways when we were younger, and people didn't celebrate that or understand it. And so we kind of squashed it, you know. We had all these budding talents because when we're younger, there's no filter to prevent that inspired idea and energy from flowing. And so now we want to get back to where we were, right? We want to awaken our thinking around creativity again.
Absolutely. All right. Excuse me. Awake thinking. Awake thou that sleepest, and arise from the dead. Ephesians 5:14. Our minds are lulled to sleep with our acceptance of standards of good and evil imposed upon us by others, by tradition, or by the present world standards. In Paul's letter to the Ephesians, which I have quoted here, he was writing to people who were very much alive and certainly not sleeping at the time his letter was read to them. When you are physically asleep, functions of your body and mind are maintained by your subconscious mind. Your heartbeat, your circulation, and even your dreams are subconsciously determined. Your awake state gives you your use of your conscious mind, while the subconscious mind goes right on doing its work. The sleep people to whom Paul referred are those who do not use their conscious minds very much. They go as the world goes. They accept things as they seem to be. They question little. Alive, vital ideas do not interest these people. They prefer the dead ideas of tradition and of their own past experiences. Awakened thinking is spiritual thinking. It is using the conscious mind as it was created to be used, namely, to explore ideas and decide upon ideas. This is affirmative mental action. It is a self-fulfilling mental action. It is indicative of the whole person as being in action. It is perhaps the highest use of mind by humanity. It is being involved in the divine creative process. So this is beautiful to understand and think about what it means to be awake, right? Awakened. And that awakened thinking is spiritual thinking. But what is spiritual thinking? It is making use of the conscious mind to think, to create, to explore, and then make decisions. As for me and my house, this is what is true, right? And so this is affirmative mental action, right? It's not even that, it's not about everybody coming to the same decisions, right? Or deciding upon the same ideas. But when you think about it, there are so many folks that actually never consciously take a look at what they've received, you know, through childhood, what they've received through their culture, what they've received through their socioeconomic status, what they've received through some of their experiences or even lack of experiences. And so it's important. Awakened thinking is spiritual thinking, and that's making conscious use of your mind to explore ideas and then decide.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's very interesting because, you know, particularly when it comes to religion, right? You're not allowed to explore generally, right? And even I'm thinking about even how, you know, the Amish have a wonderful tradition, right, where young people are given that freedom to choose to leave the tradition. But I don't know, but they're so tied to, you know, their upbringing. It has been so steeped in that culture that it's going to be very hard for them to fully explore and fully embrace new ideas, right? I also can see this in the context of when I think about my upbringing in church, right? There was this notion that, like, yeah, you can go out there and mess around and play around and hopefully, you know, God, you know, won't get you then. But if you get away, then eventually you're going to come back and act right and come on in the fold and do everything that every generation before you has done, because the fear of hell has been
so
right has been ingrained in your consciousness. So you're not really exploring ideas if you still have this fear that's placed there. It's like, well, some of this stuff is scary, or some of this stuff will put me in hell, or I might go down too far, all of that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. It's so interesting. Like, even when I remember coming to these teachings, there was that little bit of hesitation around making the final leap, because I'm like, okay, I'm out here, but I still can go back, which is true. I guess I could. But my thinking, my understanding, my knowing that there was more, and that I could not be afraid of God. And if I were, that was not the God that I wanted. All of that stuff led me on my own journey. But it takes a while. It takes a while for it to get out of your system. And so don't beat yourself up if every now and then that old stuff shows up.
Beautiful. Awakened minds are not seeking to retreat, but to advance. They know what they want, know how to achieve it, and use methods that are right to do so. Such minds never hurt nor harm others. Such people make possible many blessings for those who are mentally asleep. They are givers, giving of the divine bounty of creative thought. Their actions make obvious their progressive thinking based on the word yes and not on the word no. They only negate that which would cause them to stand still in consciousness and thereby cease their creativity. This is powerful, right? Because again, if awakened thinking is spiritual thinking, and even as we're exploring ideas and deciding upon ideas, he's also giving us an indication of what it really means to be woke.
Yeah.
Right? And we could go back, I'll put it in the resources. We have a series we did called Stay Woke years ago, right? Which was about talking about what it means to be awakened as a spiritual being, right? Not just woke in the sense of I'm aware of this racist society, right? I'm aware of the problems of this world, right? And so what's interesting is, right, they know what they want, they know how to achieve it, they use methods that are right to do so. Such minds never hurt or harm others.
Yes.
Right? And they actually make it possible for many blessings for those who are mentally asleep.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you can tell how awake someone is by how loving they are in their practice of what they believe.
Yep.
Right? We talked about this in the Loveland series. You don't take the text that's quote unquote brought you to awakening and weaponize it against another. Right? They're very understanding. They understand the path that they are on and have been on. They understand how people could still not be awake, and they never ever harm with their ability to create and manifest. Never.
Yep. Having read this far in this book, you are probably one of these people. If so, your future will be a creative one. You will think new ideas, perceive new vistas, take on greater challenges, and drink deeply from the wells of livingness and vitality. You have shed the armor of old conclusions that safeguarded your non-original thinking. You are now flexible, awake, and imaginative.
Nice
I
words.
love those three
I was
words.
going to say
Right?
those are great.
Right?
Put
You
that
think
in your
about
peace statement.
What are the attributes of an awakened mind, right? An awakened mind, an awakened being is flexible, awake, and imaginative. Your curiosity is functioning, and your expectations are many, and all of them good. You are alive, not dead. You are awake, not asleep. It is obvious that the infinite is never asleep. The creative process is a 24-hour-a-day process. The allegorical description of God in the opening chapters of Genesis states that God rested on the seventh day. It may be interesting as an allegorical symbol, but it is most certainly not a truth. Infinite mind is constant in its creativeness. There is no impediment to its action. There is no beginning and no end. There are no disruptions of its thinking. It has been called the eternal process of being, becoming being. I like to call it the glory of God. And why is this powerful? Well, there's so many beautiful lessons that we can glean from this. So, right, you have the idea of the allegorical story that we read in Genesis of the 7 days, right? And that has a purpose, right? And it reflects a lot of other creation stories. And the idea of the 7 days came from the Babylonian influence on the Jewish people, right? And of course, we recognize that, we need time to rest. We need to take days off, and we can use that to talk about that. At the same time, the idea that in truth, God or the all that is or the infinite mind is really becoming being, and there's no disruptions. And going back, I mentioned it, I think last week, going back and looking at the images that we received from the James Webb Telescope and seeing how creation is just happening and happening and happening. What's beautiful about that spiritually is when you think you're stuck.
Yep.
When you think there is no way, when you think there is no answer, when you think there's only one path, right? When you think there's only one way to do it, and because that door is closed, now all is lost. But the truth is you live, move, and have your being in constant creativeness, right? There is no impediment to its action. There are no disruptions. There's no beginning and there's no end. It is being becoming being. And that's what we need to bring our minds to. The Kabbalion teaches it in this way. It talks about the principle of rhythm, right? That movement is always happening. The pendulum is always swinging left and right, left and right. And that's an important idea to come to know and understand, particularly when you feel like your back is against the wall, particularly when you feel like all is lost.
Absolutely. And the other thing about this that it makes me realize, we talk a lot about we don't have to beg and beseech God. It's constantly creating, it's constantly moving. And so when we feel stuck, it is not.
Right.
And so this idea of begging and beseeching is conditional. That would mean that God takes a little break and decides, nah, not today.
Forgot about you.
Forgot about you. It doesn't. It just keeps creating as you, in you, and through you, and everything else that exists.
And I remember coming up hearing prayers like that, like, Lord, please stop by.
Right.
See about little old me.
See about me.
Right, all of that kind of stuff. God is always seeing you and seeing about you. That's why it's omnipresence. Everywhere, at all times, and constantly encountered.
Constantly. But we understand. We have love and compassion for our ancestors that didn't have another experience. And that in that time, it didn't feel like anything was moving. Can you imagine? Sun up to sundown, being enslaved, wondering what had you done to deserve this kind of treatment, and then being told by those colonizers that you were less than, unworthy.
Based on God's word.
Based on God's word, which wasn't God's word. It was manipulation of words.
Right. Yes. Awakened thinkers are not afraid of spiritual ideas. They welcome them. Being awakened thinkers, they analyze them to find their creativeness. Such people are not traditional thinkers. They respect the traditional thinking of others, but they want none of it for themselves. They may read the Bible, but they read it in terms of the present, finding meanings that are effectual right now. They do not have a God upon a distant throne. They have a God that indwells their minds as a pure cause of right ideas. They enjoy the present and have great expectations for good in the future. These people are of value to life, to God, and to mankind or humankind. And this is what's interesting, right? When you think about it, there's a song that's still sung in churches today, right? Give me that old time religion. Give me that old time religion. Give me that old time religion, right? It was good enough. It's good enough for me. It was good enough for my mother. It was good enough for my father. An awakened mind does not sing that song, right? And knows not the meaning or the words of that song, right? Because there's a recognition that, right, there's a respect for tradition, and I think that's important, right? There's absolute respect for traditional thinking, right? But ultimately, an awakened mind wants none of it for themselves, because there's also a recognition of how tradition becomes the vice. Like I always quote Joseph Campbell, right? The virtues of the past become the vices of the present, right? And so it's not even about arguing whether or not that it absolutely may have been a virtue for that time, necessary and needed for that time, because it was a progressive idea when it was introduced at that time. But now that we're in 2022, right, the things that were considered virtuous can actually stifle us now, right? Can become vices. And so this is what the awakened mind is operating from, that position, always ready, willing, and able to let go of the virtues of the past, recognizing that there's a new virtue that is also going to be supportive and constructive and life-giving, right? We go back to those attributes: flexible, awake, and imaginative. And as I shared last week, this one of the things that keeps coming back to me in the context of this chapter is the context of our world, right? Because the context of our world, we're seeing, and really we're always seeing generationally, the push and pull between tradition and progressive thinking. But what we're experiencing now, in truth, a lot of the progressive thinking is not new in the sense of what needs to be done in order for humanity to survive, right? To continue to live, like with climate change, right? The things that need to be done have been known and talked about for a very long time, right? So it really isn't new, right? And a lot of the technologies really aren't new, but there's still this push against tradition, right? The tradition of just oil and gas. Right? Like some people still can't imagine a world where we're not putting gas in our cars, right? Not that we don't have cars, just that we're not using old technology. Right, old technology. And really dead technology. I always think about Van Jones, who's the person that really illuminated this for me, right? We use fossil fuels, fossils, dead dead fossils. That's where this oil comes from, right? So we're actually using something that's dead, trying to make energy from it, which we've done, but then it's also destroying our planet. So why don't we use the living wind and the living water and the living sun, right? It's so deep when you start to think about it. Oh my God, look at what we've been doing. Right? We forgive ourselves and set ourselves free for whatever reasons, however that initially happened, and seemed virtuous at the time because it was giving birth to automobiles, all of that wonderful. But we were using something that's dead. When we could be using the living wind and the living sun and the living waters.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, I love this section.
Yeah.
They may read the Bible, but they read it in terms of the present, which is why not just the Bible as a sacred text, as an ancient text, as wisdom. All of this wisdom that we have access to has to be applied to your present day life.
Yeah.
That's why we talk about practical spirituality. It has to be living. It has to be usable. It has to be applicable to your life.
Yeah.
If you are interpreting it as the old way, then you're not really learning what it has to give you now.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the text, can be beneficial. A lot of it isn't, but there's still a lot of the text that absolutely can be beneficial, but we have to look at it through the lens of now, right? We have to.
I love that, the lens of now.
Yeah. All right. Mental calcification. There is no quicker way to make yourself ill, miserable, or poverty-minded than to have a closed mind. It's tight, but it's right.
It's tight, but it's right. Well,
it is also a sure way of alienating people, thus producing loneliness. With the loss of all possible creativity and consciousness, there comes the endless repetition of the monotonous. This is hell on earth, but most closed-minded people do not know this. They think of themselves as being in an impossible situation, so they resign themselves to it, and like martyrs, they carry their burdens. Unfortunately, these are not quiet people. They shout their grievances against life, against God, and against humanity. All this is completely unnecessary. God never created a person to be a vegetable. The infinite has endowed us all alike, A closed mind is an insult to the mind that created you. To the open-minded, all things are possible because all ideas are available. Inspiration finds no walls created to fence it out. It activates the open-minded person and offers to them a kingdom of heaven on earth, an arena where there are no obstacles to forward thinking. With expectancy, curiosity, inspiration, and decision, the open-minded person is invincible. Their God is up to date. Deep. Their own creative self-image is up to date, so their thinking is up to date. She is not a past-prone mind. She uses the past as a source of wisdom, draws upon it, for it has much to give them as they create new patterns in the present. And so this is a continuation of what we were just talking about. Now, I love this because, we could be triggered when he's talking about closed-minded folks and talking about shouting their grievances against life. Right. And of course, there are all of us, to any extent that we're protesting or upset about things that are happening in this planet. It's not that we shouldn't shout their grievances, but there's a next step. Right. And so those that only live in the grievance area, that means they also then are stuck and not able to receive inspired ideas, new ideas. Right. So it's the open-minded person also believes that all things are possible. Right. So I think there's important energy and sense of focus that we have to have when we're calling out the things that are going on in the world and recognizing this need not be. Right? That a world that works for everyone is possible. A world where everyone has a home is possible. A world where everyone has a living wage is possible. And there are powerful things and new ideas that are coming to bear that beautiful, powerful, brilliant, genius thinkers are receiving new ideas. There are organizations that have been created that are talking to Congress saying, hey, look at all of these things we can do, right? There are cities that are looking at the ways of what does it look like to give a certain amount of money to different citizens within a city, right? Sort of a stipend, right? I forget the term now, but basically it's income, that guaranteed income, right? And we're watching it's being studied and being experimented around the country, right? There are all of these wonderful ideas. So it's not just, hey, this is wrong. Hey, this is unequal. Hey, you're racist or whatever, right? It's like, and I know and believe that there are ways for us to live in the world. There's possibilities, and there's a possibility to actually live heaven on earth. And here are all the ways we can do it. Here are the things we can do. Look, what would happen if we slashed the defense budget and moved these trillions of dollars over here, right? Look what would happen if we healed everybody's student loans, right? As we've already seen what's happened in the last 2 years, how people have benefited economically. So that's the difference there. That's very important, and even to understand, who a closed-minded person is versus an open-minded person, right? It's not that an open-minded person doesn't see the problem, right, and doesn't have a grievance, but they're also then recognizing, and so if there's a problem, there must be a solution.
Absolutely. And it also points to what you're saying is it's not that they don't recognize that there is something wrong. And on the other side of that, they're not gaslit either.
Yeah.
There's no spiritual gaslighting. Oh, nothing's wrong, right? That would be closed-minded as well. It's a recognition that if there is a problem, there must be a solution, and I'm willing to find it. That's the open mind, right? And so all of this spiritual gaslighting needs to stop.
Yes.
Oh, this world is an illusion. But you're in this world and you're eating every day.
Right.
So if this world was a complete illusion, you wouldn't be doing all the things you're doing.
Right.
So let's stop that. Let's stop the spiritual gaslighting of people and their challenges and what it is that their sorrows and whatever they're going through. Let's recognize that that is part of the human experience and be open to helping in the ways that we can. Open to possibility for ourselves and those that are suffering. Right?
Yeah.
The open mind is the awakened mind.
Yes. And we get some more descriptors here. He writes, with expectancy, curiosity, inspiration, and decision. So that means an open mind has an expectancy of good, right? Of a good outcome, of a beneficial outcome. Is also curious, right? Recognizing that I don't know everything. I don't personally see how this could all work out, but I'm curious and I'm investigative and I'm looking and seeing, have other people thought about this, right? And inspired, again, new ideas coming from within versus motivated things coming from without. And then she makes a decision. Right?
Absolutely. And this decision point could initially be, I'm willing to see this differently. Of course, in Miracles talks about it. That could be the first decision. I know what exists, but I'm willing to see it differently. That's the first choice point. And then all the other inspiration about that choice point comes after that.
And then this idea of God is up to date, right? And our own creative self-image is up to date.
Yes. Sit with that one for a minute.
Yeah.
The thoughts and beliefs that we've held that have limited us are not keeping us up to date with what God sees as us.
Exactly.
All those things that happened, they did happen. But now we get to be up to date with the thinking of this creative mind that says, yes, you're worthy.
Yep.
So if you're holding on to the old idea of unworthiness, that's out of date.
It is.
That's out of date. If you're holding on to the old ideas of, oh, I'm too old to,
Right.
that's out of date. If you're holding on to the ideas of there's not enough people or love to go around, that's out of date.
Yep.
If you're holding whatever, it's too late to start this thing. That's an out of date idea, because the idea that inspired you to think it was possible is up to date.
Right. If you're seeing yourself or judging yourself based on mistakes you made in the past, that's literally out of date. Because God is right here, right now, knows nothing of the past, viewing you not through the past. And so when your creative self-image is up to date, then what? Your thinking is up to date. You don't have a past-prone mind, right? And I love that seeing this phrase and understanding that he wrote this in the late 60s. And positive psychology wasn't a thing at that time. But I always loved one of the things we learn through positive psychology is learning to have a past positive mind, right? So because he goes on, he says, we use the past as a source of wisdom. We draw upon it, for it has much to give us as we create new patterns. Paramhansa Yogananda, in his teaching on divine memory, echoes the same thing, that the only thing we should use the past for, if we go back to a past experience, like I love when a song comes on that reminds me of a fun time or a good time that I have. Songs bring back moments like that, right? And that's beautiful, divine memory, right? And we use the past in that way, and that's a past positive focus. Or we use it because it has something, it's a source of wisdom that we can learn from.
Absolutely.
Right? But not beat ourselves up.
Right, not keep ourselves stuck.
Yeah, right? And so then, of course, we use that to create new patterns, right? So the past is not bad, right? Because
it's just over.
Right. It's just over. But it can be beneficial when we take what has been. That's why going back to this idea of automobiles and okay, right, that got us to a certain point, and that was what was used and what was needed to get the automobile industry moving forward, right? And so we take lessons from that to create the new patterns around hybrid cars, around electric cars, ultimately all electric cars, right? And that's where we're moving to, because our motivations are present ones. Their creative ideas are present ones. He, she, we are open and receptive to new ideas, for in them alone is our mental health. I always say this again, when he uses mental health here, he's not using it in a clinical term.
Yes.
He's using it in the sense of clear thinking, clear-mindedness, right? Without them, our consciousness stagnates. Present-day living requires present-day thinking. I can't say it enough. So many things that are going on right now, right? We look at the Republican Party in this country. this is exactly what they're not doing. They're literally doing all that they can to return back to a Confederate past. Right? But it's not just here. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It didn't win then and it ain't going to win now.
Right. And it's not just here. Again, if you look at the war in Ukraine and what's happening and why Putin invaded Ukraine, this is about trying to recreate the past, right? This is about, licking his wounds and being upset and trying to take back what he thinks belongs to him and his country. But present day living requires present day thinking, right? It requires thinking differently and living differently.
Right. And you can't just use modern day technology to promote ideas of the past,
Right.
which is what has happened, right? That's happened around the elections. They took technology to create fear or reinstitute fear and old ideas that didn't work then. So you can't just take the technology, like, I'm present. You're not present.
Right.
You're still trying to create a past that doesn't exist
Yeah. Yeah.
and was flawed in its beginning.
Yeah. I'm reminded in this moment, one of my musical mentors, James Mtume, rest in peace, brother. Something he used to always say is related to music: you can only sample the past. And while we love sampling, and there's many creative ideas that have happened, we also can see, particularly now, how that has sort of created stagnation within musical creativity, right? Because there's constantly this, really just doing things that already happened, right? And so present day living, present day creating requires present day thinking. The calcified mind is neurotic, unhealthy, and can only create difficulties for the individual who maintains it. Again, his use of the word neurotic here is not clinical in any way. I actually wish he used a different word. And so we'll just focus on it being unhealthy and can only create difficulties for the individual who maintains it. Its thinking is 20 years out of date. It is obsolete thinking, seeking to recreate the past in the present, and this is a metaphysical impossibility. See, this is why PY was like, and it ain't gonna win. See, this is what we understand when we understand the metaphysics, and this is also why we can't get too wrapped up in what they're doing versus the world that we want to create. Right? Because we actually know it's a metaphysical impossibility, right? Even if they win the battle, they will not win the war, right, ultimately.
And the idea, going back to the idea of neurotic, it's just upset. What he really means is obsessive, focused in on the same thing with monotonous, just continually thinking and believing and doing the same things. That's obsessive behavior, and obsessive probably would have been a better non-clinical term, but...
Such thinking withers the spiritual muscles of the mind because of lack of use. The closed mind is rarely concerned with God or the things of the spirit. It wallows within itself in a dead sea of consciousness. It needs the command of Isaiah, "Arise, shine, for thy light is come," Isaiah 61, verse 1. It needs a resurrection out of its current death thinking into its true estate of life conceiving. Perhaps you have only a slight amount of calcified thinking. If so, now is the time to attack it. And you do this by reviewing your thinking of the past few days. The places of hardened thinking will make themselves clear to you.
Oh, yeah.
Realize how stupid and foolish these minor islands of concrete are. Into each one, put a new idea, the opposite of the old one. Clear out this mental rubbish before it begins to have authority. Here is a spiritual mind treatment that will give you guidelines. The infinite knows no inflexibility. It never retreats to the past. It never destroys itself. I am this mind in action. My consciousness is this mind in expression. God's mind is up to date, so my consciousness is up to date. Woo, that's powerful. It is flexible. There is no calcification in it. All old ruts of thinking are now obliterated and gone. New ideas are mine. I accept them, assimilate them, circulate them, and express them. My mind is clean, fresh, and creative. So fresh and so clean. God thinks in me, and I am nourished by inspiration as a result. My creativity is amazing. It renews and recreates my whole experience. I am a new person with a fresh mind, living in an interesting world. My subconscious mind accepts this treatment, and it is so right now. To that we say, amen.
Amen.
Ashe.
Ashe.
And so it is.
So it is. He keeps bringing the spiritual mind treatments. There's so many amazing ones in this book. As we say, don't get overwhelmed.
Right.
Pick the one that resonates with you and just keep using it.
Yes, yes. Ooh, my mind is clean, fresh, and creative.
Dun, 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 dun,
Right?
dun, dun, dun.
And you know, so many of us, right, we spend so much time making sure that our face is fresh and clean, right? Making sure that our bodies are fresh and clean, making sure that all of these other things are fresh and clean. But is your mind clean and fresh and creative? New ideas are yours, right? I am a new person with a fresh mind, living in an interesting world.
Right. And as we read this, if you recognize that there is stagnation, then this is the treatment for you. You don't judge yourself. You just recognize, oh, I need to implant some new ideas. My subconscious mind is ready to receive something new.
Yep.
And this is the treatment that I'm going to use.
Treatment. This is the treatment. Creative sidelines. I am assuming that you have made some definite decisions since you began reading this book. Now you need the right mental atmosphere to execute them, right? I highlighted that one sentence because he's teaching us principle, right? Some of us make decisions. Some of us affirm things. Some of us write down things. Some of us do vision boards, but we then do not know to create the right mental atmosphere. You can't create a vision board or use any kind of tool like that, writing stuff down, and then go back to doing the same old stuff you were doing, right? You know, you create a vision board for the relationship you want, then you go back to watching Real Housewives and Divorce Court, right? Right? Like that. You're not creating the right mental atmosphere to execute what's on your vision board.
Right. There's just this cognitive dissonance is happening. Right. You're trying to fill your mind, your subconscious mind with these things, but also what's getting into your subconscious mind are the things that you watch. And so as you watch them, the subconscious mind automatically accepts them as what you want to be. It's very simple. Right? And so if you notice yourself continually being drawn back to the old, then it's time to execute a new plan, to create a new atmosphere, to clear it out. All these incense we burned in, clear out that subconscious mind, right? Don't worry about the space that you're in. It's the place that you're in, right? That's what we're talking about.
Absolutely. Your subconscious mind is already working on your new decisions, creating the ways and means of their accomplishment. Praise your subconscious mind for the excellent work it is doing, even though you may not be aware as of now of its actions. Rest assured, it is in business, working for you along the new lines you have given it. The atmosphere of praise and thanksgiving is vital in metaphysical practice.
Yep.
All right, so now we're starting to say, okay, well, PG, you just called me out, but how do I create this atmosphere, right? The atmosphere of praise and thanksgiving is vital in metaphysical practice. It is a mental atmosphere in which correct ideas are nourished and given their freedom to create their corresponding forms. So this is why a gratitude practice is really beneficial. This is why for the 5 minutes of writing in your daily spiritual practice, you can write down three gratitudes, right? And different than the day before, right? In that 30 days, you don't repeat anything that you've said before. Now, why is that beneficial? Because what that is doing is training your conscious mind to focus on and look for the good. What we do in our coaching sessions, we always start with wins and successes. You have to be able to put your mind on just one thing, anything that is going well and going good in your lives, even as you are doing work to uproot some other beliefs,
Right.
or working on other challenges. You have to be able to do that, because what is that doing? That's creating this mental atmosphere that Barker is writing about here, in which correct ideas are nourished and given their freedom to create their corresponding forms.
Absolutely. You know, a lot of times clients they want to focus in on what's wrong, and we're like, well, what's good? But that doesn't matter, because your focus is over here and this is bad.
Yeah.
Well, the good has to exist.
Right.
Even at the same time, or you wouldn't be able to automatically turn in the direction of it. So that gives you more insight that, oh, right, I'm experiencing these challenges, but I also know that there's good happening. And once I put my focus on the good keeps getting better to me,
Yep.
right? We are not saying that there's no challenge.
No, not at all.
We're saying we want to help you create strategies so that you understand and put challenge in its proper perspective.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
You put it in its proper perspective. That you reframe challenge. But you got to start with a foundation of good.
Yep. Yep. Your subconscious mind is like the mother's womb. You have implanted in it your decision, which is a seed idea. The subconscious is now at work building a definite identity of thought that will soon emerge into your experience. Your decision is made fact by subconscious mental work. What your conscious mind is thinking while this process is going on is of vital import. A constructive, creative, and expectant attitude has to be maintained. Right? And so this is praise and thanksgiving. Gratitude actually helps you do that, because if you have to look for things to be grateful for, you're going to spend the day doing that. And oftentimes we advise folks to actually, write things down during the day, so that then the next day you're not trying to, oh, wow, what happened? You may be sleepy, you may be tired, you may have gotten an annoying email or text, right, that has shifted you, right? So it's good to do that, because now you're in a place of expectancy. I love how Abraham talks about with the creative workshop process, that you go throughout your day and you're just, finding new things that, oh, I'm going to take that into my workshop. That's something I would love to experience in my life. That's something I would love to be, something I would love to do, something I would love to have. And so it's constructive, because you're starting to create a life without even knowing it, right? The things that you celebrate are amplified and magnified. More of those things, or things like it, or things that represent that feeling, tone, and vibration will come into your life. So you're constructing, you're attracting, you're creating a new life. But you're also expectant, because now that you're looking for good and looking for things to be grateful for, you will find them.
Yeah.
Right? And so then that supports you in the expectancy around whatever it is that you've decided you will be, do, or have in your life.
Right.
That has to be maintained.
Has to be maintained.
Right.
I mean, I love this idea that subconscious mind is there working, but we get to consciously decide what it's working on. Right? So we're not mad or upset with the subconscious mind. We just realize that we have the ability, when we're conscious, to create and feed it what we want it to be working on. That's why when you go to sleep at night, you're feeding the subconscious mind as you drift off to sleep with the thoughts that you want it to be working on. And when you wake in the morning, that's when it comes, and it's automatically working on your behalf.
Yep.
You are in partnership with your subconscious mind,
Yep.
not in opposition.
Yep. Doubt regarding the end result of your demonstration must not enter into your thinking. It is to be avoided at all costs. Prolonged periods of doubt can undermine all the creative work your subconscious mind is doing. Every time doubt, question, or fear begins in your mind, catch yourself and stop it. Deliberately change the ways you are thinking. Force your mind to think about something interesting and pleasant. Right? Now, this is important, because this is also about, as we're talking about the power of decision, we're really talking about also taking charge of your mind and taking charge of your thinking. Right? Now, we can give you, tools that you can use. I was sharing this with a client recently, and it's something I always share because it's something that I do. Right? if I feel myself going into fear, doubt, and worry, or questioning something, or creating scenarios in my mind that have not happened yet, but I'm, having conversations.
Right.
If they say this, I'm gonna say that, or relitigating the past. Once I'm aware that I'm doing that, and there's always a moment when you become aware of doing that, the meditation also supports you in getting stronger in that awareness, right? So that's one of the reasons we meditate. I say, Greg, where are you? Mm-hmm. I'm sitting on the couch. Greg, where are you? I'm in Brooklyn. Greg, where are you? I'm in New York. Greg, where are you? I'm in my apartment. Greg, where are you? Right? It's a way to bring me here now and interrupt and disrupt that thinking.
Right. Because all of that worry about the past or the future is just fear.
Mm-hmm.
It's being disconnected from answers, disconnected from solutions, disconnected from the present. And so by either saying, your name and where are you, or as I like to say, where's the tiger? Because in that moment, when you're in that place of litigating or relitigating, you think there is something that you should fear.
Right.
Our old brain, that little part of the brain that still operates, is going to kick in to send you in the direction of running or fainting or standing still because it thinks there's a tiger.
Yep.
You've activated that energy within your body.
Yep.
So I like to say, where's the tiger?
Yep.
Just to bring myself back to there is no tiger. So that as we use any of these strategies to bring ourselves present, we begin to teach ourselves how to be present, how to regain control of the thinking in the moment.
Yep.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
Find yourself whatever statement you need that would support you in remembering, I'm here now. It could be, I am here now.
Yeah, right. That's why we use that affirmative statement, right? And what PY is talking about also, that's that moving us out of the fight or flight response, right? So it's moving us out of living in the amygdala,
The amygdala.
right? And the reason why I say meditation is supportive, shout out to our friend Bob Roth, right? Where I love how he talks about the prefrontal cortex is the CEO of the mind. And what research has shown us is that meditation strengthens the relationship between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, right? And so that's what then gives you the ability to stop and say, Greg, where are you? Stop and say, where's the tiger? It's the equivalent of the parent that can turn on the light and open the closet and tell the kid, like, hey, see, look, there's no monsters here, right? Right? But so often, because meditation strengthens that, so often most of us do not have that. When we're not meditating or have not developed a meditation practice, most people, rather, do not have a CEO there present in the company to lead, direct, guide, right? Disrupt when need to, right? Redirect when needed, right? And so that's what's absolutely going on. So this is why Daily Spiritual Practice, your DSP, 555, right? 5 minutes of reading, 5 minutes of writing, 5 minutes of meditation, of sitting in silence. If you're hearing about this for the very first time, you're like, oh my God, this sounds amazing. Go to our YouTube channel, and we taught the class on this. Daily Spiritual Practice is not an option. The class is called Practice the Practice, right? So we have a playlist for classes, or you can just go to our YouTube channel and search for it, Practice the Practice, and you can learn all about how to begin your very own DSP. It only takes 15 minutes a day, 555.
Absolutely. And it's easy. It should be easy. We keep talking about these tools should be easy. These practices should be easy because we're not trying to be battling our mind. We're trying to lovingly guide it in the direction we want it to go. That's all. That's all we're doing.
Yep. All right. Think of relatives, friends, and coworkers who are successful and declare that you have joined their ranks. Use your imagination to create mental images of things and events that give you pleasure. Speak aloud the 23rd Psalm. Remember that what God starts, God completes. Your decision, implanted by you in your subconscious mind, was a spiritual act. Feed it with right thinking. Are your hobbies creative, and do they stir up creative thinking in you? If not, they should be discarded and new ones thought. Perhaps they have completed their cycle in your experience and need to be dropped. They may have become too comfortable and have ceased being areas of inspiration. If so, take on a new project. Be sure it is one that causes diversion from your usual routines and will give you pleasure. Do not take on a sideline that you think you need for self-improvement.
Ah, good. This
So
is
very
really good. We're not
Right.
we're not trying to improve ourselves. I keep talking about this all the time. Who and what we are is already good. We're just trying to experience new ways to be creative in a hobby, right? That's all we're doing.
Right. Such a project carries with it a strain of accomplishment. It may well be that you do not need constant self-improvement. Take a short vacation from it and choose a hobby that is pleasant, yes, even fun.
How about the fun? Right? Many times people they'll get an inspired idea to do something, paint a picture, and then they think that means everything about their life is supposed to become a painter, as opposed to just enjoying the experience of painting. Maybe it does develop into something, but maybe it's just a new creative expression of you. Maybe it's just for fun.
Right. We unfortunately have gotten into this place in our society now where everybody is turning their hobbies into a business. Can your hobby just be a hobby? Can it just be something that you do not have to monetize it, right? Everything does not have to be monetized, right? And it's so incredibly important. Why? Because pleasure and fun are creative mental atmospheres. Oh, so here's another thing. We need to create a mental atmosphere that's supportive of the decisions we've made. We just talked about praise and thanksgiving and gratitude, right? And we've also talked about how do we interrupt and disrupt that thinking when it's not there. But pleasure and fun are creative mental atmospheres.
Right. And I tell my clients all the time, that's one of the things that we're going to do when we work together is we're going to have fun. You know, a lot of times when you come to quote unquote working on yourself, you think it's supposed to be arduous, right? Or you beat yourself up so much in this negative reinforcing way. There's no way that you can get inspired ideas. There's no way that you can allow the transformation or the restoration, as I say, to continue. Right?
If pleasure and fun is not experienced in your life, you ain't spiritual.
Ha!
Right? Seriously. Right?
That's why we have so much fun when we're teaching.
Right. And that's why we're always laughing. And
Oh my
that's why
gosh.
it's literally like the fruit of the spirit, right? But it's the fruit of a spiritual life that understands how it works. Right? Too many people have too little pleasure in their usual week. It is a tonic that keeps the mind functioning in ways of health. There is healing power in a hearty laugh, just as there is destructive power in weeping and anger. Your mind needs the pleasure idea to offset the constant work idea. And this is an old New Thought term, the race mind. We'll just say the human race or collective consciousness has overemphasized the work idea.
Right.
He was saying this in 1968.
Yeah,
There was no social media. People posting about hustle and grind and this and that. It's still true. The human mind, collective consciousness, has overemphasized the work idea. We all know people who have so completely accepted the work idea that they cannot accept the pleasure idea.
Right, the side hustle. I got a
Right.
side hustle. I'm like,
Right.
can it just be fun that you
Right.
just found something that you enjoy? And if you're led, divinely led to create something around that, you'll know. You'll know in the time.
Right.
It's almost as if we feel like every moment of the day has to be accounted for.
Right.
Accounted for in terms of my worth in doing that, the value in doing that to the world. But why can't it just be that there's something that I just enjoy doing and that the worth in it is just my desire to do it?
Right. Yeah. Their jobs come first, not their mental health. They do, and this is what's interesting. Again, in this context, it's mental health, as I talked about earlier, just our clear-mindedness, but we are also seeing, right, literally from a clinical perspective, what happens when we overindulge in the work idea and ignore the pleasure idea, right? They do a full day's work and take home more work for evenings and weekends. They create their own isolation and think of it as being virtuous. And it is celebrated.
It's celebrated.
Virtue of the past, vice of the present. It is.
It is celebrated.
That's been celebrated across time, right, in movies and the people that we call the heroes and the great people of our world, right, it's seen as virtuous. It is not.
I mean, you were talking about that in relationship to COVID.
Oh, yeah,
People
yeah.
can't even allow themselves to recover without taking work home
Yeah.
when they're sick.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a great article in the LA Times. Finally the studies are coming out, but to me it's just kind of clear. But doctors are saying, like, rest. Even, only working 80%. And unfortunately, we have folks, including our president, we wish him well and pray speedy recovery, but he's modeling the work idea.
Right.
Unfortunately, right? He's modeling not the idea of rest, right? That when you get sick, all things should stop. And rest is just as important as everything else. And particularly, one of the physicians that's quoted in the articles talks about, still, COVID is not like getting a cold, right? So we can't think of it in those terms, but we shouldn't have been thinking in those terms anyway, right? We have medicines that are created to support us in continuing to work, things like Dayquil, right? Instead of things that are supporting us in resting.
Right. Again, we have a career. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you are defined by your career, the amount of output you have, I remember being that person. Like, I didn't see my value unless I was working hard. I actually talked about how hard I worked.
Right.
And I got compensated.
Being is virtuous.
Right. And I got compensated for it until I would be flat on my back, literally, and couldn't work. And that would be the only time I stopped. But I've lowered my threshold for pain. And I realized that there's a balance that needs to be in place in my life.
Yep. Again, they create their own isolation and think of it as being virtuous. It is not. It is unhealthy and unwise. It is a false concept of their own importance. It is the human ego expressing. The work idea must be balanced with the pleasure idea. So there's the other thing, right? It's about balance. It's not an either or.
Right. It ain't just, I'm going to throw everything. I'm just going to, that either. Right.
And but
Go
this
ahead.
is the reason why people do that,
Yes.
right? Because what happens, you're living so much on one side, the work idea, that then you have to overcompensate, and then it's like, oh, I'm throwing caution to the wind, and I'm not working nowhere, and I'm just gonna travel the world, and I'm just gonna enjoy and be in pleasure, right? Because there was never balance to begin, right? Begin with.
And that's something that we all have to learn, what is balance for us. But if you're right, if you're in one side or the other, it breeds resentment, right? And so we want you to have a balanced life.
Yeah.
And as it says here, the infinite mind wants you to be happy. If we just took that in, it wants you to be happy.
The work idea must be balanced with the pleasure idea. God did not create you to be a drone. The infinite created you to be a valuable producer, but it also equipped you for pleasure to stimulate your creativeness. The infinite mind wants you to be happy. Never forget this, and take every step necessary to ensure your happiness. It is necessary for your spiritual growth. The unhappy are spiritually declining. This is not for you. You are now on a pathway of balance between that which must be done and that which you want to do. Maintain this balance, and you will maintain your creativity. When you do your work, do it well. When you have your times of pleasure, expand them to their fullness. Take from them all you can, right? So this is kind of like the, work hard, play hard idea, right? Even though there's some slipperiness with that.
There's some slipperiness.
But the idea is that on both ends, right? Do your work well, but then also, go all in when you're in times of pleasure and fun, right? Expand them for their fullness, right? Get all the juice. Take from them all you can. Make certain your mental house is in good order. You have no further use for negative speculations. Cut them short and dismiss them. You are expecting great things of your subconscious mind. You are expecting it to give birth to the fact of your decision. This is a time to fast from all negatives. It is a time to watch especially the trends your mind is taking. Use your imagination to keep your thinking on course. It will always go in the direction you give it. You are the authority that determines your ways of thinking. Be that authority, right? So you have authority, but you got to be it, We love to watch Caesar Milan, right, and his latest show on National Geographic and Disney Plus. And that's one of the things you see constantly in anyone who has, you know, a dog that's in need of rehabilitation, right? It seems problematic, but what we find in almost every case is that the human must become the pack leader and actually. Because they are the authority, but they must actually be that authority. This one, the episode we were watching last night, this young lady, she was scared to feed the dog. She's like, I would never touch his bowl. I'm like, but who's buying that food? And who bought the bowl? And you know what I'm saying? He owns the food. He owns the bowl, right? And so what she had to learn was to actually take authority. And it was powerful and beautiful and amazing and loving to see what happens when you take authority and you actually be that authority, because that's really what, instinctually, that's what the dog needs.
Right.
And if you don't do it, then it's going to lead and be the authority in the house, and there's going to be chaos.
Right. And it's all about trust as well.
Right.
That animal will trust you once you take on that role. Now, that doesn't mean you punish the animal.
No.
There's a sense of knowing who is in charge.
Yeah.
And I bet, in truth, she wasn't even in charge in her own life.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it.
And she talks about that, how it was helping her realize who was in control of her own life. Right? So who's in charge? You can even say that to your mind when it's over and where you're at. Wait, who's in charge here? I'm in charge. What I say and believe and know to be true goes.
Yes. Be that authority. Many times each day, check on your thinking to be certain that it is the kind of thinking that will produce for you what you want produced. Check it to see if it is sustaining the healthy mental atmosphere that your subconscious needs at this particular time. If it is not, you now know what to do. You authorize a new direction of thought. You again contemplate yourself as already having what it is that you have decided to have. This is not daydreaming. This is healthy thinking that guarantees results.
I love this because he's saying check your mind. Now, many people take that to extreme. They're like, let me watch my thought. It's saying the moment you become aware of emotion that is not in alignment with who you are or what you want and what you say you want to be, then you already know it's in the wrong direction. That's the moment you can regain control of it, right? This is not being neurotic, obsessive, like in this sense of the word, about your thinking. It is understanding that I'm in charge, and when I recognize that I am no longer in charge, I take control again. I choose again.
Yeah. Paying attention to your emotions is everything, right?
Yep.
This is why we love and we teach Abraham. The emotional guidance scale is wonderful. Emotion is the first manifestation. So whatever emotion you feel is indicating what you're thinking and giving you the opportunity to redirect it, right? Before it manifests as something or physical. Keep the inspiration level in your mind high. It needs to be a constant flow through your consciousness. It is the kind of refreshment that the mind needs. It prevents you from doing what I call drab thinking. Drab thinking is unproductive thinking, and you cannot afford it at this particular time when the full action of your consciousness needs to be one of healthy expectation. Watch a growing plant for a few minutes and you will be inspired. Eckhart Tolle echoes that many years later, right? The intelligence at work in the plant to bring it to its present size is the same intelligence that is functioning in you as you. If that intelligence has created the plant or the flower, something you cannot do, then it will create, by means of your subconscious mind, your decision into fact. I never cease to be amazed at the intelligence that is at work in nature. It knows exactly what to do and does it. I often declare that that same intelligence is now operating in my consciousness. I declare that I am that intelligence. Such statements keep the creative ideas in the mind alert as they go about their business of becoming. Inspiration can be induced in consciousness. The more you declare that you are inspired, the freer the flow of inspiration. New ideas appear to give you refreshing thought. They prevent mental staleness, which is a dead-end street. They keep a circulation of healthy thinking, which gives the mind a healthy tone. Straight is the gate and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that findeth it. Matthew 7:14. This is directed right thinking leading to results. You have passed through the gate of decision, and you are now on your way of on the way of directed thinking so that the decision can become the fact. You have gone too far now to turn back. The gospel song, come too far.
Turn back now.
To go right to where I started from. Your demonstration is certain, for you are maintaining the mental atmosphere in which it is being born. The law of the subconscious now works mathematically without any hindrance from the conscious mind. It is free to do its perfect work, and it is doing it. Its total know-how is in action on your idea. Freely, you have given your clear thought unto your consciousness, and freely you shall receive the result. Remember that you do not need to know how it is accomplished.
The how is not your business.
It's your business. You only need to know that it is already done. That which ought to be already is. I have absolute faith in the science of mind and the laws that operate it. They never vary. If I do not get the results that I think I should, I do not blame the mind and its laws. I do a recheck on my thinking during the past month. Right? This is important.
Yeah,
Something
we
has
say
gone.
this all the time. Well, like a challenge will come up, and we take the person back. So, what were you thinking? What happened prior to this thing? So that you then realize you can gain control, begin to examine what was going on in your thinking, not to judge yourself, but so that you realize, oh, there's a cause and effect operating. This is how it works. No judgment, but now I get to do something different.
Something has gone wrong in my consciousness that has given a different direction to the law of the subconscious. As a result, it turned from doing the work of thought it was doing and went off in other directions because I told it to do so. Your mental recheck will probably tell you the reason for your not demonstrating your decision. So, you then start all over again, determined to have the law produce what you have again decided it shall produce. In a firm voice, you speak to your own subconscious, authorizing it to produce your decision. You declare that it is already done. It is already an accomplished fact. In that this time there will be no interruptions of doubt. You then give thanks that this is so and conclude the treatment with a loud amen, ashe. And so it is. The creative process of the subconscious again begins its scientific work and continues to the end result, unless you again interrupt it with confusions. But this time you will not do that. Right? And so this is very important. This is why the atmosphere and creating the atmosphere, then you're not nitpicking what you're doing. You're creating an atmosphere of expectancy, your positive expectancy. You're creating an atmosphere of things are always working out for me. You're creating an atmosphere where you're focused and can see places and spaces to be grateful and express gratitude and write it down now. Right? That's what you're doing. You are a creative human being. Never forget this. You may or may not use the spiritual creativity that is your divine inheritance. That is up to you. When you do want to use it, though, you now know how to do it. You now have the tools. Start with curiosity.
I say that.
Move then to inspiration. Then comes the moment of decision, followed by directed, clear thinking. Nothing is easier to explain and at the same time more difficult to accomplish. And so
Right.
this is why we practice and experiment.
All the time.
Yeah.
We're still practicing.
Yeah. And coming into greater and deeper understanding, right? Using these mental techniques based on spiritual laws, you never again have fears about the future. You determine your own future. You have total faith in your individual mental equipment. Never again will you bog down in the quandaries of doubts, fears, and negative speculations. Never again will you fear humanity, nor be jealous of your brother, sister, human family. You have been set free from all that unnecessary negation. You are free to be a positive, creative person who has decided where you are going in life and uses the right thinking method to attain your goals. Right? So, right, you make the decision, but then you got to use the methods. Right? I was saying to PY, so often I see all over social media the idea of mindset is everything or mindset over everything. But what I also recognize is that that's only one piece of the puzzle, right? That so many folks don't understand spiritual law and don't understand mental science, right? And the methods that are required. It's not just making the decision. It's not just the deciding, right? And so I love here. Start with curiosity, move to inspiration. Then comes the moment of decision, followed by directed, clear thinking, creating that mental atmosphere.
Right, and that mental atmosphere can include fun. Right,
It must.
it must include fun.
Yeah.
And so, if anywhere that you've been thinking that this is an arduous process, that fun is not included, all these things, we just told you that's not how it works.
Absolutely.
That's unnecessary negation.
Yeah.
When you make it hard,
Yeah.
when you punish yourself, when you beat up on yourself, when you criticize yourself, right? That's unnecessary.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, this was good.
Good chapter.
So we move on to the next chapter, and this is actually a typo. I noticed this. Chapter 7 is the next chapter. For some reason, it listed here as chapter 6. Chapter 7, decisions, decisions, decisions. We will move forward with the next chapter starting next week. So read chapter 7, set a time, put it in your calendar to read it. We encourage you to read at least twice. And any questions that you have, send those to truthsunday@celebration.sc.org, and we will incorporate it into next week's class. We're getting to the end, and so we're going to continue with the next chapter, and we're looking forward to supporting you in integrating all that we've moved through and all that we've learned, and there's some wonderful things in the text that will support that as well. At this time, it is time for giving, and we are very clear here at CSC of what it means to give and how we give, because we recognize that giving must be given in the atmosphere of pleasure and fun. Yes, yes. That when we talk about giving what feels good, we know that we must, as givers, and this isn't any type of giving, financial giving is just the lens that we're talking about it now, it must be given through the lens of joy, right? Through the lens of more than enough. And it must be divorced of obligation. It must be divorced of resentment. It must be divorced of shame. It must be divorced of guilt, right? We have to remove all of that stuff. And again, when you think about giving, right, in any context, so much of our giving has been rooted in those things, right?
Which is a past understanding.
Right.
We've been talking all today about a creative use of the present, right? Getting rid of the past ideas.
And so what's most important in your giving is that you give what feels good. Find your joy number, whatever that is, and give it with ease and with grace and with joy, without hesitation, without thinking about it tomorrow. Right,
Without as soon as you hit the send button, you want it back.
Right, all of those, right, all of that stuff. Right,
I'm kind of talking myself, right? From the past.
You ever been there?
You ever been
right,
there?
We've been there.
Be like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. I need that money, right? Do not give from that place.
Exactly. Give what feels good. Find your joy number. It's very easy to give to CSC. You can go to our website, celebrationsc.org/give, or you can text your dollar amount to 347-744-9500. And when you give from this awareness, when you give from this consciousness, when you give from this mental atmosphere, then you can affirm and know that this is done. All the money that I use returns to me multiplied. In a never-ending cycle. Of increase. And enjoyment. To that we say amen.
Amen.
Ashe.
Ashe.
And so it is.
And so it is.
And so it is. And so it must be. And so it must be. Well, we have come to the conclusion of our service today. It is always a joy to serve and to give in this way. We love and appreciate each and every one of you. And we just encourage you all to be mindful. The heat wave is real, right? The temperatures are real. So please be mindful all across the country, really all across the globe, right? Temperatures are at a record, and we have to be mindful. We have to be safe in these conditions. So please do that. Stay hydrated. Check in on those that are most vulnerable. Check in on our seasoned saints. Check in on anyone else who may be vulnerable in any way to these conditions. And we look forward to connecting with you on Wednesday morning in the prayer call. And we look forward to, of course, gathering here together again on next Sunday as we continue with studying the power of decision with our Truth Sunday Masterclass, I've Got the Power. Have an amazing week on purpose. Know that you are loved beyond measure. Know that God is with you. God is operating in, through, and as you. And that is the source of your power. And so you are magnificent. You are significant. Live worthy. Live worthy. Be worthy. All right? And we'll see y'all next Sunday.
Next Sunday it is.
All right. Bye
Love
for
you.
now.
Bye for now.